So I'd like to start today with the four great vows. So we're going to start with another vow. And you can follow along with me if you like. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. So today, I've come here today to talk about practice. Practice is something that is really very simple if we're not needlessly complicating it. Simple in the same way that breathing is simple. By and large, breathing is just something that we do all day long and don't think about. But many people end up with problems with their breathing. Like in my lay profession, I'm a massage therapist. And so I have an opportunity to watch people breathe while they're laying there on the table. I'm sitting on the chair and I can watch how they breathe. And you would be amazed at the very large percentage of people who breathe in a very shallow way in their upper chest. And this is a way that the body can breathe. And for these people, breathing in this way is very natural. But this type of breathing is not particularly conducive to a relaxed way of being. Breathing in this manner actually sends a signal to the body's nervous system to make you anxious. It activates the fight and flight nervous system. But many breathe naturally in this way. And so even though practice is something that should be just as simple and natural as breathing, practice can be something that we can find ourselves with some unfortunate habits or some unfortunate misunderstandings that sometimes it can take a while before we encounter the causes and conditions that can address those. So today, that's what I'm hoping to be able to shed some light on. In the same way that a person who learns about breathing learns about, well, if you breathe up in here, you get the fight or flight nervous system. If you breathe down here in the belly, that sends a signal to the rest and digest nervous system. You can learn about the difference between inhalations and exhalations. And if you breathe a really long inhalation and a short exhalation, well, that's going to fire you up. But if you breathe less on the inhale and longer exhale, well, that's going to calm you down. So knowing about how breathing works can give people a tremendous amount of power to begin addressing these imbalances that may be creeping in. One can become more skillful in breathing and then use the breath to accomplish different or specific functions. Knowing about what Chan practice is and how it works can be similarly empowering. One can get a lot more out of the same time and similar levels of effort. For example, a car that is fine-tuned can cover much more distance using the same amount of fuel than one operating at a lower level of efficiency. One can get much closer to their destination when they know where to go than driving aimlessly, hoping for the best. So this particular list of elements is not one that is unique to me. I would not claim to have come up with this. I actually encountered this particular list on my third Chan retreat. This would have been by Gilbert Gutierrez, who Warren mentioned is Dharma heir of Master Sheng Yen. And this was at an independent center in Michigan. And during this retreat, Gilbert, he passed out these little slips of paper that had these elements listed on them. And I found that it was very interesting, especially to me, that they were dated. So the date, I guess, that he'd come up with it or he'd printed it, he had recorded that on the paper. And this retreat happened in October. But the date was September 28th, which just so happened to be my birthday. And so when I received this, I thought to myself, "Oh, what a wonderful birthday present! This piece of Dharma that I'm going to be able to benefit from for the rest of my life." And I have. I have used it to practice and to present with for many years because I have found it to be personally valuable. By exploring, looking into these elements and putting them into practice, my practice has gotten a lot more well-rounded and robust, and I've gotten a lot of benefit. So there are some different ways that we can approach this. We can approach this as this list as a whole. This list as a whole as just being a Dharma door. But each of these elements are Dharma doors of their own. And some of us may have looked into these doors before, but they can be widened. The panes of glass that cover them can be cleaned so that they become brighter and clearer. These doors, these elements of a proper practice can be applied to any meditation method and any practice, whether standing, sitting, or lying down, in movement or in stillness. These elements can help breathe life into a practice that, for some of us, may have begun to feel a little stale, or to fine-tune the practice, or to more properly reorient. Through sincere exploration and application, these can help take a practice to another level. So we're going to start with the first of these elements, which is actually the bedrock foundation of our practice. And this is right view. This is the most critical of all the elements. Whether we know it or not, our views condition all thoughts, words, and deeds. When our views are discordant with the way things are in truth, unwholesome activities appear. Activities motivated by greed, aversion, and delusion. This is where some of the not so happy, kind things appear in the world. When our views are off, the more off they are, the easier it is for us to become wrapped up in our self-centricity and to not care about our actions' effects on the people around us, even our loved ones. But the more that our views do accord with the way things are in truth, the more wholesome or harmonious activities appear. Selfless love, compassion, and wisdom. When these start appearing, we might be able to say that this could be called approaching right view. So what is this right view? I spent a lot of time working on this presentation, just 5 hours today alone. And when I sat down to work with this, I was able to get through the intro and, oh yes, right view is very important. And then I put this question down: what is right view? And I'm telling you, I probably spent 2.5 to 3 hours just writing a little bit and starting over again. Right view is very interesting because there isn't any specific set of words or phrases that we could stick a pin in and, label and sell as genuine right view. Genuine right view isn't really a concept. It's not something that we can cut apart and throw on a stall and sell. Right view is it's not that way. But in looking at all of the sutras, all of the commentaries, all of the presentations by the various great masters over the thousands of years of Buddhist teaching, this is what they're all talking about. They are all presenting right view. And if we even are to just take a cursory look at just some of the very basic history of Buddhism, you have the Theravada tradition, where the right view, they would say, oh, it's Four Noble Truths, the Four Noble Truths. Like if you want right view, that's what you have to look into. But what does the Heart Sutra say about the Four Noble Truths? That they're empty. And so we see that this right view, as Buddhism continues to evolve, and whatever the previous generation held aloft as the highest principle, the most important thing, their presentation of right view, it could be finer. It could change, and indeed had to change, to fit the needs of the audience, the changing needs of the audience as time went on. But what remains the same is that right view is always this orientation by which some cumbersome words, but this orientation by which illusory bondage is undone. It is what Master Lin Shi called the true and proper understanding regarding mind, what mind is. And he describes the truth of mind as being one solitary light that appears to divide itself into 6 different spheres, the 6 sensory spheres. So in the eye, it sees. In the ear, it hears. In the feet, it walks and runs. And in the mouth, it talks and eats. But then he goes on to say that, even though, and he spent a long time talking about the truth of mind, but this isn't a Master Lin Shi talk, though if you have the opportunity and inclination, you should check him out. Absolutely fantastic. But in everything that he presented, what he himself said is that there is no real Dharma here in what I'm saying. This is only medicine for the times. Taken as a whole, this is right view. Master Lin Shi, he even cautioned against, don't just pick up the words that I'm putting down and run away with them as if they are the truth. It's not this way. There's no real Dharma here, only medicine. But in the entirety of his presentation, it is all right view. In the Diamond Sutra, the Buddha declares that he did not realize any such Dharma as unexcelled perfect enlightenment. He said, the slightest Dharma is neither obtained nor found therein. This is what is called unexcelled perfect enlightenment. To view all created things, and I'm quoting directly from my Red Pines translation, as a lamp, a cataract, a star in space, an illusion, a dewdrop, a bubble, a dream, a cloud, a flash of lightning. View all created things like this. This is right view presentation. The right view exists in all of the teachings, but you have to know what to look for. You have to be able to look behind the words and try to feel the message that's being communicated. What is being described? This illusory nature of things. Whatever may appear is not enduring, not constant. It is only a momentary appearance. The truth of it, whatever it may be, expands far beyond the mere surface of appearance. Its roots are infinite throughout time and space. So here I've got a common everyday item. This is the blanket that I use to cover my legs while I sit on my cushion. This blanket is made of plant fibers. They require soil, water, air, and sunlight. because the plants that produced the fibers of which the blanket is made depend on these things. This blanket is not actually apart from soil, water, air, or sunlight. It cannot exist separate from them. It is impossible. Even more so than that, this particular blanket was actually made by my grandmother. She gave it to me when I was in high school. And so not only is there the component of the physical materials, which were required for its coming into being, for its momentary appearance to arise, but there is effort, there is learning. And in order for my grandmother to make it, there is this long cultural tradition, human innovation that enabled the technologies to produce such a thing as this. It appears as a simple household item. It appears as a blanket, but that is just the surface. This existence is a separate thing, is its conceptual nature. It is just a concept that it is separate and apart. This is indeed very shallow. I describe it as being as deep as a reflection. So if you go and stand in front of a mirror, you can see that face reflected, and there do appear to be some contours. You can, like, I've got a mirror right over there, so now I'm looking at it. You can see that there's some shadows in there, and it looks as though there's depth. But if I were to go up and try to touch the reflection in the mirror, it will be flat. So our concept of things is very much like this. Sure, it's a thing, and it's got these dimensions, it's got these colors, but that is only as true as the reflection in the mirror is deep. It's there. It most certainly does appear, but that reflection, the mere appearance, cannot really communicate the truth of a thing. When we incorporate this understanding of all of its different parts, the sunlight, the soil, the water, and the effort involved, we begin to have a deeper appreciation of its nature. This is its dependent nature, because it takes into account that it does not exist alone. The conceptual nature is, oh yeah, that's a thing. It's totally separate. The dependent nature takes into account a much deeper truth. This is much closer to the way things really are. This is like being aware that with the image in the mirror that, oh yes, there's a reflective surface and there's a real object that have to come together in order to generate that reflective image. But there is another level. And this is the level that the Buddha was talking about in the Diamond Sutra, where he said that the slightest Dharma is neither obtained nor found therein. This is the true nature in which there is no real thingness to be found. These different ideas, these concepts can serve as a pathway to begin approaching right view. Right view is not something that can be given to someone. I cannot package it in a neat little bow and give it to you, and instantaneously there will be an awakening as to the true nature of reality. Even Shakyamuni Buddha had a great difficulty with this. When Shakyamuni Buddha first encountered an individual after his enlightenment, the person noticed about him, like, oh, wow, there's something about your bearing. You just seem so magnificent. I bet you know something. What do you know? What is it that you've seen? And the Buddha said, I am the fully enlightened Buddha, self-enlightened. I have apprehended the true nature of reality. And the man went, oh, okay, really? Well, that's great. Bye. And he wasn't able to penetrate. After much contemplation, the Buddha found a way to introduce people to this ascent. Things like the Four Noble Truths, Pratitya Samutpada, the 12 Nidanas, causes and conditions never fail. I could just pull out list after list after list, because the Buddhists love lists, just in case you didn't know. There are lists for everything. And all of these are ascents, ways to climb, to investigate, and to realize right view. So these three natures, these are one of my go-tos. They come from the Yogacara tradition. And again, I use them because I found them to be personally very helpful. What we are looking for with this right view is a relaxing of clinging, to not be so aggressively held onto our concepts, who we think we are, what we think the world is. The harder that we cling to our concepts, the more that we're inviting an experience of, as I said earlier, this discordant view with the way things are in truth. Because truth cannot actually be described by words and phrases. There's another treatise that I'm very fond of, called The Awakening of Faith in Mahayana. And it talks about suchness. Suchness is the true nature of things. But suchness is just a word to put an end to words. So right view is the foundation upon which our practice is able to erode and soften all of the harsh and harmful clingings. So with this in mind, we can ask the question, what are we then doing on the cushion or in practice? We're not really trying to even get rid of those vexations. We're not trying to become more relaxed person. We're not trying to become a more moral person. With a proper practice, these things will actually take care of themselves. When we have a narrow set of goals like that, I just want to relax, I guarantee you, meditation practice is going to be able to help with that. But when that is the heart that you bring to the practice, a lot of the other potential doorways through which great benefit may come can be closed. Oh, I just want this. Oh, I just want that. Doors and doors, closed, closed, closed. Instead, I have found that it is important to have this mindset of investigation. So what are we doing with practice? Well, we're investigating. We're investigating mind. We're investigating reality. This is right view. So this is the first of these elements. And because it is such an important element. I wanted to just take a moment to see if anybody had any questions come up about this. And if you've got any questions, you can raise your digital hand, or you can put your camera on and, you know, raise your hand that way. And so I'll just give you a little bit in case anybody has something comes up. And if not, I suppose that's okay too. All right. So now, number one, right view. Number two, awareness. Awareness. And sometimes I think about this as having the quality of openness. So, what is being aware? So normally we have the idea or the attitude that me, I'm being aware. I'm aware. And I am aware of the world. I am aware of these thoughts. I am aware of, this uncomfortable sensation in my belly, whatever it is. I am the one who's aware of this. This is something that, like the shallow chest breathing, there's a better way to go about this, because sort of planting ourself everywhere. I am the one who's being aware is like constantly planting stones upon the path that one trods. It's like you're always throwing not just tiny stones, but stones of all size, ones that make it difficult to travel. We don't want to be burdened by this idea of me meditating. It doesn't actually need to be there. Me being aware. There is just awareness. So what is it that is being aware? Some would say awareness. And the ascent upon which I am embarking, or have been embarking for a while, mind. Mind is aware. And me, I am an image or a concept that appears within mind, just the same as this body. This body is also an appearance within mind. So, what is this mind aware of? More mind. Awareness of phenomena is just the illumination of mind. When we begin to do this, we begin to wear away at this bubble of dualistic relatability. Dualistic means there's two things. It's me and the world, me and you, good and bad. But when we can bring in right view to this element of awareness, we can begin to see that, what is it that sort of makes all of these things, this good and bad? Well, those are just concepts created by the mind. Well, but I created them. No, you are also just a concept created by the mind. Whatever it is that appears is created by the mind. This is pratitya samutpada. Causes and conditions never fail. The 12 nidanas. Anything that appears because of this. And that is just the functioning of mind itself. So in ordinary life situations, we can try to be aware of the underlying causes and conditions that arise. So you're at work and your coworker is having a really bad day. He's very angry and upset and snaps at you and calls you a name. You don't have to impulsively, angrily respond to that type of activity. You can be aware, a little bit more open and expansive, that there is this expansive net of causes and conditions that led to this specific occurrence. And really, it doesn't have anything to do with me. I am also just an appearance within this massive web, interconnected web. When we can invite this type of awareness into our everyday life, a lot of that tightened constriction can begin to be released. There is this sense of openness, a little bit more choice is granted us in what we say, think, and do. This is number 2, awareness. So we've got right view and awareness. And if you notice so far, right view is creeping into awareness more than just a little bit. You may find that right view creeps into all of these. So our third element of a proper practice is present moment. Present moment. And today, as I was thinking about this, I looked at it as being the quality of sharpness. What is arising in mind moment to moment? Moment to moment to moment. And just coming back to that, moment to moment, slicing it finer and finer, seeing all of the bubbling arisings. So even we'll just take a look at that office example. Here's the person who's angry. Oh, they're angry and they're yelling. In the present moment again, all of that is gone. And there's noise, there's sound. If you take it to the nth degree, you're going to have a hard time interacting at work. But if, say, later on in the day, you've had that sour interaction and maybe your awareness wasn't so good. Your awareness wasn't so good and you got upset and you snapped back at the person. And now you're carrying this grudge. So later on, they appear to have set aside their anger, but you're still angry at them because of what happened earlier, not in the present moment. If you can let go of all that other stuff, returning to the present moment, you're going to have a lot easier time. This is just a very ordinary way of using it in a meditation practice. This can get to be a lot of fun, a tremendous amount of energy can come from trying to find the present moment. Just getting closer and closer and closer. Like, where is it? Where is the present moment? Yeah. Well, that's all past. Where is the point at which the present moment can actually be found? And this is something that a very famous teacher, Nagarjuna, he said, there is no present moment to be found. Where would you draw that line? How long does it last before the present becomes the past and the future becomes the present? This is a very interesting and useful investigation. So we've got a comment from the chat. Is the attachment to memory causing the later angriness? Yes, it is. And dragging that attachment around, just like a ball and chain. This is a secondary or a tertiary type of attachment, because this attachment is only made possible by a series of other attachments. So this attachment to the memory that arose is centered around attachment to one's sense of self. To truly be in the present moment, means that you cannot find the self anywhere. You cannot actually find the existence of any concepts anywhere. This is another reason that the investigation of where is this present moment can be so fruitful. Another thing that we can do, another sort of ordinary life application, is that instead of focusing on the consequences, the consequences of, that person insulted me and I got angry, that's a consequence. We can focus on new causes, putting into motion better causes in the present moment. But we also have to be very careful to not attach expectations to those, because if we attach expectations to those, then we're departing from the present. We're looking into the future with anticipation, and that puts into motion future discomfort or dis-ease. If you want to see into the future or into the past with actual clarity, look at what's happening right now. You want to see what you're going to be doing in 1 year or 5 years? It's pretty similar to what you're doing right now. Pratiti samappada, causes and conditions never fail. If you react impulsively with anger, with strong greed, that's not going to go anywhere. So when we put into motion these better causes, that will change. That we'll be able to see in the future that, yes, these are going to be the activities that are going to have a better chance of arising then. So this is number 3, present moment. And you can see right view in here. All of these are really just little helpers to present right view, little helpers to allow right view to become more present in our moment-to-moment practice, whether it's on the cushion or off the cushion. So number 4, this is relaxation. And today I was thinking about this as the quality of softness. Relaxation is really non-clinging. Any kind of grasping leads to hardness, tightness, or restriction. So when we are sitting on the cushion, we relax the body. We just let it sit there. We give it over to the cushion. It does not need to hold the shoulders up here. It doesn't need to tighten up in protection. Just let it sit. Just let it be. You may like this. Allow the mind to rest in awareness of the present moment. Look at this. They're all coming together now. Relax or rest in awareness of the present moment. Master Sheng Yen said that relaxation is the foundation of meditation. We relax the body. And with the body's relaxing, the mind tends to come along, the two not being entirely separate. More about that later. In our ordinary lives, this is another lesson that I've gotten from Master Sheng Yen through Gilbert, is to always have this attitude of relaxation or rest. Whatever you are doing, do fully, but know that you are resting from everything else. So, as an example right now, I am giving this Dharma presentation. I am resting from preparing for the Dharma meditation. When I was preparing for the Dharma meditation, I was resting from eating. When I was eating, I was resting from my morning practice. And when I was doing my morning practice, I was resting from sleeping. And so we can always carry with us this attitude of relaxation. So if we notice that we are feeling harried or hurried, just remember to rest from all the things that cannot be done right now, which I guarantee you is almost all of them. You rest from them. And one at a time, you can bring them to fulfillment as you rest from the previous things done. Gilbert has said that he found this to be the most useful, practical instruction that Master Sheng Yen ever gave him. I just wanted to mention that because this is some seriously good medicine if you investigate it, if you really give it a try. You can hear me say these words, and you'll be able to get a little bit of benefit from them. You may even be able to communicate these ideas or concepts to other people, but you won't know the truth behind them. So this is an invitation to practice resting, to practice relaxation 24/7. Relaxation, number 4. Number 5 is contemplation or not thinking. So what this means is not habitually engaging in logical, linear thinking process. This is called cogitation as opposed to contemplation. So this is the way that we normally go about our lives. If you ever pay attention to your stream of consciousness while you're doing really anything, chances are it's thought, 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 thought. And they all have enough relation to the previous thought to continue this stream. Just always thinking. This is how the ego or sense of self relates to things, how it processes information, and how it perpetuates its continuation. So this cogitation, logical thinking, is how our sense of self appears to move through space and time. It is carried by this endless stream of thinking, of not only just thinking, but self-referential thinking. The reacting, judging, labeling, what I think is good or bad. Oh, I don't think that person should have done that. Oh, I hope that person sticks around more. I really like what they're doing. It sounds marvelous to my ears. This stream of thought is continuous and constant. And this is how our sense of self, our ego, lives. Contemplation, on the other hand, can still produce thought. It will still produce thought, but they are non-clinging thoughts. They are functional thoughts, thoughts that are like, oh, a thought arose. Does it have anything to do with the present function of this body and consciousness? No? Well, no need to interact with it. No need to suppress it. No need to judge it as being a bad thought. Just let it go. But if the thought does have something to do with present function, you put it in it is put into action, and then it's let go of. For example, while sitting in meditation, you become aware. My shoulders are all the way up here. I should relax. Oh no, that's a thought. Ignore that thought. Yes, no thought. I'm doing a good job meditating. Not so much. If you notice, oh, my shoulders are up all the way here, naturally, the thought of, oh, relax the shoulders will arise. And that has something to do with present function. Meditation, relaxation go together. So, Allow that thought to be applied. And having been applied, I don't have to think about it anymore. Whoosh, it's gone. No more need to think about it. Because there is a significantly reduced constriction of grasping and reacting to every thought that comes along that that characterizes our logical cogitation process. Contemplation can process information significantly faster. When it's really up and running, when contemplation is genuinely present, information is processed instantaneously. There's no buffer, there's no obstruction. And when logical thinking is genuinely appropriate, it tends to be much quicker and more insightful when the mind is dwelling in contemplation. Master Lin Chi. So you may or may not be able to tell that I read some of Master Lin Chi recently. He had one simple instruction that he declared was more useful than many years of pilgrimage. Don't give it a second thought. He's talking about contemplation, because the logical cogitation process is one thought goes to another, to another, to another, just thoughts attached to thoughts, attached to thoughts. Master Lin Chi, truly a master, cuts through it all. Don't give it a second thought. Another ancient master said that the problem is not that a thought arises. The problem is that we do not notice it soon enough. Because when we do not notice it soon enough, that one thought, it brings its buddies along. And all of a sudden, there's a party of unwholesome thoughts just crowding consciousness, bouncing around off the walls, generally making for an uncomfortable experience. One that's, even if it's full of pleasant thoughts, there's still that agitation of, yes, it's excited and feels so good. But don't give it a second thought. So that's number 5, contemplation. So the 6th is method. And I was thinking about this today as the quality of solidity. Our method is our one thing that we get to hold on to. In sitting meditation, in walking meditation, in the formal meditation practice, holding on to the method is the central function. You hold on to that like it is your lifeline, like it is your very best friend. You do not want to abandon your lifeline or your best friend. So you have to know what your method is and how it works. Different methods might work a little bit differently, like silent illumination and Hua To. They have some different peculiarities about them. But generally speaking, a method is that solid thing. There is a description by an ancient master, and where he talks about a tile or a stone thrown into a well. And so sticking with the method is like sinking to the bottom of the well, getting all the way to the bottom. In ordinary life, this means following function. Be clear about what your function is in any given situation and fulfill it. When you're washing the dishes, that's what you're doing. You wash your dishes until it's time to be done. You don't just leave them in the middle. You don't wander or worry about all of this other stuff and not pay attention to what you're doing. You're just clear about what your function is. What's my method right now? Well, it's washing the dishes. So I will be present, aware of washing the dishes. And thoughts that don't have to do with that are not to be entertained, not vilified, but not sought after, not perpetuated. So this is number 6, method. Number 7 is continuity, which I was looking at as the quality of stability. This is basically keep at it. Master Boshan said that practice should be taught, impenetrable, integrated, and pervasive. This is basically saying it should be continuous without any gaps. This means not taking a break whenever a juicy thought arises or when you hear the ice cream truck drive by. This requires great sincerity. This is something that practitioners have an incredible amount of difficulty with. We may be able to set up our practice, get comfortable and relaxed on the cushion and open up our awareness, pick up our methods, be in the present moment for 5 seconds. And then we grasp a hold of something and we're away. And then, oh, we've got to come back. And we're there for 5 more seconds before we grasp a hold of something and run away again. I don't know if any of the rest of you have had an experience even remotely like this, but I have. I definitely have. You just have to keep at it. Another thing that Master Boshan said, and this is from Master Shengyen's book, Attaining the Way. He said that if you have a hard time persevering and sticking with it, that just means you have to try that much harder. You just have to be sincere. You have to be continuous in your application of practice. And you have to have some faith that even though you might feel like you're in a storm, that if you keep coming back, if you keep using the method, if you keep staying in the present moment, that pratitya samutpada, causes and conditions, will never fail. With your sincerity, your practice will change to reflect it. So that's number 7, continuity. So number 8, sublime. This is the proper attitude. This is not something that can be faked or forced. It naturally arises when the practice is going smoothly. The other elements are balanced. Everything's in place, and naturally sublime. This is knowing that nothing needs to be added. Nothing needs to be taken away. A sense of calmness and ease, or as some of the liturgy says, freedom and ease of body and mind. See the statue of the Buddha. The Buddha always has this very gentle smile, just a very, very soft smile, not like a maniacal grin, not even like a, oh, I'm so happy. It's just a very gentle smile. Sublime. When this naturally arises, it reflects a deep penetration into right view. When this can be present even during bodily discomfort, even when there's a buzzing of thoughts and emotions. This means that right view is finally sinking in. Oh, yeah, the body is full of aches and pains. The mind is full of wandering thoughts, but this is just pratitya samutpada. This is just mind. It's truly the way things are. And there can be a sense of ease. It's just the way things are. When I first started going on retreats, I practiced real hard. And, I'd go in there and I'd feel like, I was trying to take a running start or, gun the engine to, get to 88 miles an hour, Back to the Future. I'm trying to, leap through time. And there would be wonderful experiences. The mind would calm down and settle, and it was so wonderful and peaceful. And then I would go home, and like a spaceship returning from Earth, not on a good trajectory, crash land. And I would get, as I came to call it, the post-retreat blues. Oh man, the mind is not calm and settled anymore. And the body is not as comfortable as it just was 48 hours ago. And it's so hard. And eventually I would forget about, how wonderful it was until the next retreat. And here I am, supercharged again. Gotta get as far as I possibly can. And come home and crash. Go on retreat. Come home and crash. This was because I had a very incorrect way of relating to what was arising in body and mind. Having more wandering thoughts at home as opposed to a retreat is very natural. This doesn't mean that it requires being upset about the difference, about what's happening at home. Even amidst an uncomfortable mind, or when you're first going on a retreat and there is that being brought face to face with just how scattered the mind really is, you can be okay with it. It's just pratitya samutpada. Causes and conditions never fail. Nothing is out of place. And that attitude, that sublime way of relating can be present. And it makes everything easier. So these are the 8, and I'm actually gonna copy and put them all in the chat. We have right view. Right view is the foundation. It is the most important. Right view is what informs every activity of body, speech, and mind. Awareness is the open field. Awareness is mind experiencing mind. Present moment is the quality of sharpness, just coming back and not chasing, but beginning to see that all of time is kind of together and cannot be actually separated. When you wander off to think about the past, where does that happen? In the present moment. When you wander off to plan about the future, that too happens in the present moment. We have relaxation, just giving the body over to the cushion, resting from everything else, having this non-clinging mind. Contemplation, not engaging in non-stop linear thought process, letting the mind rest. We have our method. This is what we can solidly hold on to. And the more disturbed the mind and body are, the more that we rely on the method. We have continuity, where we do not give up on the practice. And we have sublime, where nothing needs to be added and nothing needs to be taken away. So I see a question in the chat. Causes and conditions never fail equals everything is okay. Not necessarily, because in this world, in samsara, everything is transitory. Everything is short-lived. And so we cannot rely on the things themselves. So we can't say that causes and conditions never fails means that everything is okay. But what it means is that everything is in its place, that nothing is out of order, but the heart of the practitioner also has a role to play. The more that these elements can be used, the more that there is this investigation into the mind, the more that this Bodhi heart is revealed. And causes and conditions never fail. That Bodhi heart will mobilize body, speech, and mind for the betterment of samsara, for the increasing freedom of the mind from its bondage. I hope that makes sense, iPad. That was a very good question. Thank you for that. We don't want to try to take refuge in this world, in the causes and conditions of samsara, because as the sutras say, this is a burning house. There is nothing here that can last. And this is right view. In clarity regarding this, the mind uses the apparent practitioner to, if not put out the fires, then dampen them for a time until those trapped within can be brought out. At its fullest level, the right view understands that there isn't really anyone to be brought out. There isn't really a house that's on fire. These are illusions. Nevertheless, these illusions do appear, and practitioners investigating the mind take up the Bodhi heart and exercise compassion through whatever means are appropriate in any given situation. This practice of Chan is not for us to just get out and wake up. This would be a foolish endeavor. This practice is for the awakening mind to be shared, and with fellow apparent Buddhist practitioners, this can be shared in certain ways. You can talk the Dharma with them. You can refer them to scripture, sutras, and shastras. But for the mind that is trapped in other ways, that does not have access to these particular avenues, a kind word may be what is most appropriate. Helping a person accomplish their wholesome goals may be another. I often reflect on the Shurangama Sutra, where it talks about Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Guanyin Pusa. And Guanyin appears in a variety of different ways. Guanyin will help those sentient beings, those trapped portions of mind, believing themselves to be real, fulfill their wholesome goals of being a good householder, of participating in the government, so that having accomplished these goals, they will then be able to investigate the Dharma. They will naturally turn towards this investigation of mind, investigation of reality. So with these 8 different elements, we can use them like an astronaut's checklist when they're getting ready for launch. When we sit down on our cushion, when we get ready to begin our days, we can go through them one by one. Just be like, right view, check. Awareness, check. And I've spent quite a lot of time doing this with my meditations. But we can also modulate. We can use these various elements to sort of turn up and down the volume as they are needed to bring about stability. And this is sort of like a silent illumination. Sometimes you need more silence. Other times you need to turn up the volume on illumination. And one can use these elements in this manner. And again, we have to never forget that these elements in this practice are there as a finger pointing to mind. This is for an empowered investigation so that the mind can awaken to its own nature. So I want to thank everyone for coming and participating today.